response to that whole situation. Maybe, Jim, you'll chime in on this. Folks, there's a time when we all need to say enough. We stop. We don't cross this line. How he referred to this young lady and the treatment he gave her is
well, you can
it's
tell.
Illegal.
Give us the word because people are very interested.
Well,
he called her a slut,
prostitute, and so forth. And just the reference to her was very demeaning. And this is 2012, folks. This isn't, the good old boy club anymore. Women's rights and everything. We shouldn't even be talking about these things. It should just be everybody on equal basis. And I'm just saying, because I'm part of this program here, and we hold ourselves accountable for what we say and do. I'm glad to see 20 of his advertisers left, and I hope they close down his show. That's all I got to say on the matter, Reed. Back to you.
Thank you very much. We have 4 sponsors. If we lose just one, we're below water, underwater. We got a great guest with us who gives up his Saturday morning rather often, and he's good enough to come in when he's not in court. He is the ex-district attorney, I might add, of the Chautauqua County, and he is very knowledgeable on elder law, and he's here to talk and answer questions and just sort of chat with me. Okay, JimSubjackpt. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Reed. It's always a pleasure.
Well, it's always my pleasure, too. So what's new that you wanted to talk about that's going on in the senior world, outside of the fact we're getting killed with a lack of cola?
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, as a matter of fact. And there's a couple things I want to address today, and we'll get to whatever questions the viewers have. We'll try to answer as many questions as they pose to us. I want to respond to what John said when he said maybe Jim can chime in on this, and I will. But as far as the cola part of it, I agree. I went to the grocery store yesterday, and my wife was busy doing something else, so I covered for her. And I'm looking at the prices of food that even just a year ago was substantially less than what it is now. And then, of course, there's always the price of gasoline, which is now approximately $4 a gallon here. My daughter's in Texas. They probably mine for oil more in Texas than any other state other than perhaps Alaska, and she said the gasoline there was about $3.70 a gallon. So something is completely askew here. The gasoline, by the way, I think is profiteering. I don't care what anybody says.
Sure
and that's all it is. And BP and Shell and Esso and Mobil and all those companies are going to be coming in with $15 billion a quarter profits, and they're going to say, well, that's part of doing business, and we kick that back in. No, the part they kick back in isn't computed when they come and talk about their profits. So that's really what it's all about, is making money. They're doing it on the backs of the consumers. I even have a cynical view and say it's partly political because they'd like to see a change in the White House. Therefore, if they can drive the economy into the toilet for the next 6 months, then perhaps it will change. Again, I don't have anything to substantiate that. That's just my own personal feeling.
Well, it looks like the Republicans are doing the same thing. I mean, everybody's howling about it.
That's right.
They're doing everything possible to trash the economy. And, of course, they have huge power. The giant, rich, powerful companies, they can raise prices all over the place. They can stall, they can fool around. They have a huge amount of money.
And are distributing it liberally. That's very clear. This whole political campaign, I don't care who you support, has been extremely troubling. If you support Mitt Romney, he's a devil according to Newt Gingrich. If you support Rick Santorum, he's a devil according to Mitt Romney. If you support Rick Santorum, he's a devil according to both of them. If you support Barack Obama, he's a devil according to everybody. Just once in a political campaign, and I haven't seen it in a few years now, just once in a political campaign, can't we see discourse that says, vote for me because I do this, I can do this, I will do this, as opposed to don't vote for he or she because they did this, they did that, they will do this, they will do that. I don't want to hear what the other candidate can or cannot do. I want to hear what you can do in order to make my determination as to whether or not I'm going to vote for that particular person.
Well, Romney, who's a multimillionaire,
oh, yeah.
He admits to $250 million, but I'm sure he has a lot more than that.
And pays less taxes than I do.
Yes, he does, and he's against raising taxes at all. Of course, for the rich and powerful, and well, our Congress is of the rich, for the rich, and by the rich. It's that simple.
It absolutely is. And that's unfortunate.
As Will Rogers said a century ago almost, we have the best Congress money can buy. Taking money right and left. Okay, Jim, First of all, you're quite active, I know. So's your wife. She's
a
on the
village
council.
board member in the village of Fredonia.
Okay.
And making a name for herself, let me tell you.
Is she?
Yes, she sure is. She makes waves, and I'm
Nope.
glad to see. She's always been an independent woman, and that's one of the things that attracted me to her in the first place. She has a mind of her own. She's not afraid to speak it. She stands for things, and when she stands for them, she'll argue them until the death. So she's doing that in the village. She's done some things that have been somewhat unpopular with neighboring communities. For example, the village of Fredonia always used to give a donation to the city of Dunkirk for fireworks, and she says, you know, we have just laid off a police officer, and now you want us to give away money for 30 minutes worth of fireworks? That doesn't make any sense.
And Parliament shut down the senior center.
Yeah.
Give me a break here.
Yeah, so there are priorities, and that's another one of the things I want to address, by the way, which has been in the news lately, which is the local war on drugs. If I can, there's a couple things I want to talk about. First, John it's not a challenge. John just asked me to comment on the Rush Limbaugh. That really is an extension, Reed, of what I was saying earlier about the nastiness that's now pervading politics and life in general. Of course, Rush Limbaugh in my mind has always been Rush Windbag, and it's do as I say, not as I do. Remember Rush Limbaugh years back saying all drug users and drug addicts need to go to prison? Then, of course, it turns out that Rush Limbaugh is a drug addict. He has illegal pills, for which people around here would go to jail, but Rush Limbaugh, because he's Rush Limbaugh, gets away with it. And all of a sudden, he stops talking about that. But no, if he's true to his word, he should have agreed, charge me with a criminal offense. I'm a drug addict. I have illegal drugs. I need to go to prison. So it's do as I say, not as I do. And what he said, like John said, was completely out of bounds. I don't know how you construe her saying, questioning birth control and things like that, makes someone a prostitute, make someone a slut. I'm not sure I follow from one to the other. Clearly it was said for shock value. And unfortunately, I saw a poll on MSNBC that about 30% of the people agreed with what he said. That's even more disturbing that people would feel that way. What happened to the right to express an opinion? Whether you agree with it or not, you don't get nasty and, well, that's just another...
Well, I do want, I'm not a defender of Rush Limbaugh, Windbag. I think he says some disastrous things, and his conservative efforts, which are listened to by so many people, are damaging as hell to our country.
They are.
But she had said at one point, I expect to be paid for sex, which was kind of I'd knock me over. It's kind of a strange comment to make. And of course, Limbaugh picked up on that and took off. And he said some things that should not be said on television.
I agree. The other part of it is there was a legislative meeting where there was a question about the money that we spend locally on the Southern Tier Regional Drug Task Force. And it's actually more than what it was announced. At the legislative meeting, it was close to $500,000, including overtime, that we spend for drug enforcement in the county. Now, that's just from the Sheriff's Department. That's the county's local share. Jamestown spends a significant amount of...
Does that include jail time for all these people?
That's true. That's a good point. It doesn't. But Jamestown spends a significant amount of money. The city of Dunkirk spends a significant amount of money, and the state police put in a significant amount of resources. Now, I'm not one to say that we should not continue the war on drugs. What I think we need to do is start thinking about shifting the emphasis on the war on drugs. We can, and I've seen this. I represent some of the people that I prosecuted in the 13 years I was DA. It's the same people over and over and over and over again. And what happens is they sell a small amount of cocaine, a small amount of heroin, a small amount of crack cocaine, or larger amounts of marijuana to people who are addicted to those particular substances. Well, that's the key to the whole point here. They're addicted to those substances, therefore there's always going to be the supply. This is basic economics, supply and demand. So when you have a demand because people are addicted, there's always going to be somebody to produce the supply, to supply those people to satisfy their addiction. Back when I was DA, probably, I'm guessing 15 years ago now, I went with Kevin Laumer to see the late Judge Doyle, who was the administrative law judge, indicating to him that some courts in New York City had initiated these drug courts and that they were very successful. So I got Judge Doyle, with the help of Kevin Laumer, to agree that we were going to have one drug court. We now have 3 in the county. And my experience with them is they're still very highly successful. What it is it's a long, intensive program tailored to the individual need. So if I have a passing addiction, I hope no one takes this as I have a passing addiction, but as an example, if I have a passing addiction, it may be treated simply through some counseling and some support. If I have a more serious addiction, maybe I need some inpatient treatment. If I have a very serious addiction, then maybe I have to have some type of long-term treatment.
And the hitch there for the rehab is that there's no money for it. Because
That's
they're
correct.
spending so much money on these big charges into a drug house, which doesn't matter. They're all right on the street the next day.
That's right.
Replacements.
It's
And jail time and court and lawyers and everything.
That's right, and it's not working. That part's not working. Now, I'm not suggesting that we can't and shouldn't continue to enforce the law as it regards drug dealers. We do. And what we need to do is start taking them off, but what we also need to do is some of those drug dealers, in fact, in my experience, a large majority of those drug dealers that are being arrested for sale of crack cocaine, for heroin, of cocaine, are addicted themselves. And what they're doing is they're selling amounts of crack or other drugs that they purchase at a cheaper price to people locally who pay a higher price. So it continues the cycle. And then those people become addicted, they find a cheaper source, they then go and sell to other people. What we need to do is start from the bottom, not the top. We need to start from the bottom, treat those people who have those low-level addictions up to the higher-level addictions, get them off the drugs. Think about it. If you don't have the addiction, you don't have the need. If you don't have the need, you don't need to make the purchase. If you don't need to make the purchase, there's no need to make the sale.
There you go. We got a couple of callers.
Okay, I'd be happy
Hey, good
to.
morning, caller. Thank you for waiting.
Good morning. A couple of weeks ago, you had a guest on that talked about
Steve
legalizing-
Kirshner, Dr. Kirshner from Fredonia.
That's the guy. Could your guest talk about his feelings on legalizing marijuana? That's been a really hot topic even on your reality shows these days.
Yeah, marijuana. Did you read Margaret Vallone? She's 80 years old and writes letters to the editor in the Dunkirk Disturber.
I don't get the
Well,
paper.
she had a long story about a long letter to the editor about marijuana, where half the people in jail are on mostly minor Mickey Mouse drug things like marijuana, and it's costing us billions and doing absolutely nothing. They called me in one time when I was on radio in Long Island to be part of a drug bust. So I dressed like an ordinary guy, stood around and watched. They swept in with 16 carloads and state and local and cops and sheriffs and everybody. Rounded up a few people, and I watched as before the car was out of my sight, the last cop car, new people were right on the street, which means that you just spent $1 zillion. They're now going to have to pay for judges and court costs. They're going to have to pay for jail time at $85,000 a year, I might add.
And the people are mostly indigent. You have to pay for their legal counsel, too.
Their attorneys, and incidentally, why haven't they changed the marijuana laws? You know, the Constitution was written on marijuana. It was written on hemp. Back in the old days, they had hemp because they made paper out of it. Made excellent paper.
That's true.
Back in the 30s or early 40s, William Randolph Hearst, who had huge forests of pine growing for pulp for paper, and was threatened by the hemp, got the Congress to pass a law against hemp. Then they had to use it. It was desperate for rope, and it takes 360, I think it's tons of marijuana, of hemp, to float a ship with a rope and the sails and all the other things they've got. It's a huge amount, which you digest down. It's a homespun, incidentally, is hemp. So at any rate, he got it reinstated in 1947. And from that time on, they've been putting hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people in jail, losing their liberties, felonizing them so they can't vote, and ruining lives right and left for a little toke of marijuana, essentially. And incidentally, they toked it back. George Washington had 40 acres of it, I might add, and Thomas Jefferson had over 300 acres of hemp. Everybody had hemp. They made their clothing out of hemp. The Constitution, I said, was written on hemp. It's paper. And also, so was the Declaration of Independence, because that's what they used back in those. They made Bibles out of it. I mean, give me a break. What's going on here? Why is, 80% of the college kids admit to having a little hemp once in a while. 50% of the American adults admit it. Why is Congress trying to put all these people in jail, for God's sake? Do you have any idea? Thank you.
I can't comment on what was done 2 weeks ago because I have the Dish Network, therefore I don't get this. I hate to admit, but I don't get this show. I get to see mine, but I don't get to see others. So I can't comment on what somebody said a couple weeks ago. And then unfortunately, Reed, I can't comment upon what's in the paper because I don't get that either.
Okay.
I do get papers. I don't think I'm completely uneducated. I get the Buffalo News and USA Today every day.
You don't get the Times, though.
I actually look at it on the internet, though.
I don't get the Observer, but they have a wonderful